Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad-bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 7, entitled The Son of Drona Punished, text 31. Dristva tratejastutayo Trilokan Pradahan Maha Dayamana Praja Sarva Samvartakam Mamam Sata Drishtva thus seeing Astra weapon Tijaha heat True but Tayo of both Trin three Loka planets Radha blazing Maha severely Dayamana burning Praja population Sarva all over Samvartakam the name of the fire, which devastates during the annihilation of the universe. Amam Sata began to think. Translation. All the population of the three worlds was scorched by the combined heat of the weapons. Everyone was reminded of the Samvartaka fire which takes place at the time of annihilation. Purport. The three worlds are the upper, lower and intermediate planets of the universe. Although the Brahmastra was released on this earth, the heat produced by the combination of both weapons covered all the universe, and all the populations on all the different planets began to feel the heat excessively and compared it to that of the Samvartaka fire. No planet, therefore, is without living beings, as less intelligent, materialistic men think. Om Ajnana Timarandasya Gnanana Salakya Chakshur Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamyam Dadati Swapadantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So the population of the three worlds was scorched by these two Brahmastras combined. So the power of them was extraordinary because the entire universe became affected. And so that is described both in the verse and in the purport. And then it is described how all the living beings of all the planets were affected by it. And Prabhupada immediately takes advantage of that to say, and no planet therefore is without living beings, as less intelligent materialistic men think. Which is kind of off the topic, but at the same time it is Prabhupada's ongoing topic to establish that simply the entire universe is filled with living beings, sarvaga, and that according to their particular state of consciousness, living beings are placed in different conditions. Sometimes going upward in the universe, sometimes going downward in the universe. Talakiti brahmatam uparyate. Then, in the Srimad-bhagavatam, it is described that the demigods are by nature in the mode of goodness. They're inclined to therefore do everything according to scriptural injunction. It is said on planet Earth, everyone is by nature in the mode of passion, and therefore by nature is trying to act according to spontaneous feelings, and then possibly, for those who are more elevated, some scriptural thoughts, maybe there as a second thought. In the lower regions, there is no regulation whatsoever. There is just basic primitive behavior. In the Srimad-bhagavatam, there is a description given of the various planetary systems. And it is described that above the three worlds, there are the three worlds being the lower planetary systems, middle planetary systems, heavenly planets, Swarg, and then above that, the Maharjana Tapaloka, and then Brahmaloka. It is said on the Maharloka, there are great saintly personalities who are known as Prajapatis. These personalities are basically performing austerities in order to to produce qualified offspring. That is their consideration. So they're above the level of the demigods, who are basically trying to enjoy the senses, but according to prescribed duty. Then in the middle planetary systems, we just try to satisfy the senses without rules and regulations. And in the lower planetary systems, it is just basically sense gratification, suffering. Hellish planets, suffering only. But still, even in the hellish planets, the desire for sense gratification is very, very strong. Srila Prabhupada is explaining that there are 8,400,000 species of life, and in all these species, from the Indra Gopa germ to Lord Indra, all these living beings are afflicted by lust and are trying to enjoy their senses. So you see, all these insects are just, they're on the go. They're having a party. They're trying to have a party. Just such little creatures. That's really what's on their mind. So when a mosquito sees us, it thinks, wow, look at that. Looks good. Can't wait. Have to wait till they're sleeping. So like this, we can appreciate that even in the lowest forms of life, sense gratification is there. It is said in the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned even in the germs that, and ultimately of all sense gratification, sex desire. So sex desire takes over all living entities, and that's the entire reason for material existence. Brahmananda was telling Prabhupada how when he was a student in university that he had written one essay, how basically everyone in existence has a fundamental drive towards spirituality. And his professor, and Brahmananda said this foolish professor had just, denied all that and had said, no, in this world, everyone is just driven by sex life. Prabhupada said, your professor was right. That was it. Yeah. And so that's it. Then in the Srimad-bhagavatam Rita, it is explained that according to one's involvement with sex life, one is placed in on a particular planet within the universe. In the highest regions, like Brahmaloka, it is said that those who are sannyasis, not devotee sannyasis, but sannyasis who are renounced and who have strictly adhered to their vows, they attain Brahmaloka and they continue. Then the brahmacharis, they go to Tapaloka, which is below that. And there also everyone celibate and so on. And then we come down to the Mahajana Lokas. And there in the Mahaloka, I described, are the Prajapatis. And above them are the great sages, who are more exalted, who are still also, although they spend all their time in self-realization, still they're married, still they're engaging in sexual activity. It is said that when this fire of annihilation is coming, then that fire reaches up to the Maharlokas. So the Prajapatis are also feeling the heat of that fire, so much so that they need to travel, they need to leave their planets and go up to the Janalokas. And there the fire of the annihilation is not felt. Right? So in this way, That fire, also interesting enough, if we look at it in the Srimad-bhagavatam, seems to have to do something with the fire of lust. Yeah? It seems to be there as a reaction for involvement with lust. And as the involvement is very minimized, there's no more feeling of that fire. Interesting. The other day I was looking at Dante's Divine Comedy and comparing it to the Bhagavatam. Because he goes through all these hellish planets there, and it looks a bit like the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, when you go through all the different hells, although a little different. And then on earth there's also the purgatory, where you have to go through, or the purgatory, sorry, where you have to go through a whole further purification before you can go to hell. And then the last one you have to go through is you have to walk through fire, which is the fire of lust. And you have to just walk through this fire. So Dante also somehow or other walks through this fire. And then he can ascend to the heavens. So then the heavens were described, and they were also very interesting, because the heavens were describing that there are different planets, and that some take birth on the moon, some take birth on the sun, and so on, and that is very much in line with Vedic literature. But such situations are heavenly planets in Vedic literature explain of temporary nature. Finally, then there were some regions which were still higher than that, and then it came to the ultimate, right? After the heavens it comes to Il Paradiso, the paradise. And in the paradise was interesting. There was a description of a flower, like a rose, which has many petals, and therefore forms different rings, right? These petals. And in the center of it, there was such a bright effulgence, and then Dante could not see any further. He says there his vision ended, and he could not actually see more than that effulgence, what was there in the center. Now Vedic literature speaks about a lotus. Lotus and rose are not so different in terms of structure. They're both made of rings of petals, which are like in formations, right? And have a core. Now, okay, we know from the Vedic literatures what the petals are all about. We know that outside of the lotus are various realms, including Vaikuntha planets. Then we come to the petals of the lotus, and on the petals, on the external periphery of the petals, there is Ayodhya. On the internal periphery of the petals, there is Mathura. Right? And then when we go into the core, there is Gokul, there is Vrindavan. And what is there? Green pastures, lovely hills, lots of cows, and different streams of water. Nice trees with flowers, and then trees with fruits such as mangoes and other things, bananas, you name it. They have it all right over there. Nice place, certainly. In that Gokul, there Krishna resides. And Krishna is there with his devotees, engaged in so many pastimes. And that abode is very effulgent. It said there is no sun in that abode because it is naturally effulgent on its own. And that is the difference between Golok Vrindavan, the Vrindavan in the spiritual world, and the spiritual world here. We have on this planet also Vrindavan, but in this one the sun shines. It's quite hot actually at times. it's blasting. There, no sun, but the planet itself is effulgent. And ultimately that effulgence has its origin in Krishna. And it's that effulgence that is very bright. It's that what Danta saw. And therefore he was not able to see what was inside. Isn't it interesting to look at the parallels? And I mean, I could really get serious about it and with PowerPoints and so on, get into like the detail, but that would take a few days, and I save you the misery this morning. I just go straight, because really, if you go through Danta's hells, it's intense. The first one, of course, the first hell is the hell where the philosophers go, like Socrates and Plato, the Greek philosophers. They almost made it. It's the hell for the ones who almost made it, and it's just too bad, they just missed it, according to Danta. They just missed it, and that's all. They have a good time, they have everything there, it is a very pleasant place, but everyone lives there in the consciousness that they've just missed it. And it's called limbo. That's the first hell, it's called limbo. Then there are 7 hells, and I won't go through the whole thing, but since I got into it, take you a little further, just the graphic details, just to make it exciting. There's the final hell, the lowest of lowest hells, the ultimate hell. And this is the hell for the traitors. And you know, there are different traitors in history, are there, Judas and Brutus, and various personalities are there, and historical personalities. And it said, and that hell is a cold hell. And all the people there are just sitting up to their lips in the ice. And the devil is there in full size, flapping his wings, his big wings, and the wings, they make it ice cold. Alright, that's Danta for you. I knew you would like that detail about the flapping wings, so I had to throw it in. Huh? Making serious offenses. In Holland, we have Amsterdam. How dare you offend the whole Dam. Anyway, back to the Bhagavatam, which goes beyond such mundane places as Holland and Australia. I'll get you back later. So the Bhagavatam and the Srimad-bhagavatam Rita, which is an expansion of the Bhagavatam, are basically describing how living beings then are, as one is involved with sex life, one is going to different degrees of enjoyment or suffering. And that's basically it. So here in this planet it's quite clear, right? It may look good, but then, you know, it turns out to be the worm on the hook, right? Like, I could, for example, say Australia is like such a worm on a hook. It looks really good, right? But when you bite, you know, sooner or later, you're caught in the material energy, and you gotta just, you know, and you gotta come back life after life, right, to be an Aussie again and again. But there's no guarantee that's going to be human. You know? So you may wind up being a kookaburra. He who laughs last, laughs best. So the essence, though, is to somehow or other detach ourselves. And this is the situation with Asvatthama. Asvatthama, as we remember, through this Brahmastra, in revenge because his father had been killed and by manipulation and tricks in the battle of Kurukshetra. So that was very unfair, and because it was unfair, Ashwatthama became angry. And that's understandable. When something is really unfair, you also feel like it irks us. Now, this was really unfair. I'm not going to take it. And you get angry, right? But Ashwatthama was a Brahmana. And it says, Janmanam Jayate Sudra, by birth everyone is a Sudra, Sanskarit Bhavidvija. By sanskar, by regulative principles, one can become twice born. By Veda Patet, one can become Vipra, and then Brahmana Janatiti Brahman. And the Brahmanas, they know Brahman. They know the ultimate cause behind everything. So this was the thing, that Ashwatthama was looking at the immediate cause. The immediate cause of things, there are so many immediate causes. Who smashed my car? It was, okay. It was so and so. He just smashed into the car. That's the immediate cause. Some personality who doesn't drive so well or whatever smashed into your car. Fine. But there's also an ultimate cause. The ultimate cause was, there are many causes. One cause was your karma. Yeah? Due to all that bad karma, the car needed to be smashed. What can be said? Yeah? You had it coming. Yeah, you deserved it. Yeah? It was your karma. You had built it up. And now it had to be released by a smashed car. Yes, could be karma. Yes, but ultimately we see Krishna. The ultimate cause of everything is Krishna. Now, you have a devotee, and a devotee is walking barefoot on a rocky path. In India you have these rocky paths, and you're walking in the dark, barefoot, on this rocky path, and there it is, that rock, and there's your big toe, and there you go, bang! Oh! Split right open, right? I mean, I don't know if you ever had that experience. I lived in India. I have a lot of practical experience in this matter. So here is, now who did it? Was this my karma, or was it Krishna? That's the question. Some may say, oh Prabhu, that was your karma. Others may say, oh, that was Krishna. So what is it now? Is it Krishna? Is it karma?
The same thing, yeah.
Is it?
I thought so.
Okay, well, some different. You worship karma. Put karma on the altar and go in.
No, it's karma, but it was Krishna. It was Krishna.
What?
How what you had, and so.
Yes, that's there. Yes. There you go. Good. Krishna is watching our karma, and he says, okay, you become my devotee. Now you get diminished reaction. The old fan, okay, turn off the electricity, it slows down. Diminished reaction, you will get, oh yes. And the stock that is in your heart, I will just write something off, just like that. Okay, boom, boom, boom. You don't have to get reactions for these things. Yes, your sinful inclination, it will diminish a bit. And these are all the elements of aparabdha karma, of karma that's not yet fructified. That is there. But then, Prabhupada explains, it's not just about the fan that is slowing down, it's also Krishna who is sitting there and who allows it all to happen. Krishna just is watching it. He's allowing it to happen, and if he so desires, Krishna can interfere. And if something was supposed to happen on Friday the 13th, If Krishna wants, he can shift it to Saturday the 14th or a few years later. If you were supposed to die at 70 and the astrologer has calculated it and it's completely, let's say a good astrologer, and it's right, it's really there, the cause of death, everything is there, and then you don't die. Because no, you may not die because Krishna interferes. And the more we engage in devotional service, the more Krishna may be inclined, can be attracted to interfere. So in this way, everything changes by devotional service. So ultimately, our karma is also changing. So Aswatthama was lacking this vision. Aswatthama was looking at the immediate cause. They did it. It was politics. And they did it inappropriately and not in a fair fight. Therefore, right, they deserve to be punished. And he wasn't seeing the bigger picture, the bigger picture of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Same with Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. As the battlefield Kurukshetra, one family divided over two sides of the army, anxiety. Arjuna doesn't see the bigger picture, the Supreme Lord. So it is there where Aswatthama failed, and there where he fell down from his transcendental platform as a Brahmana. And it is therefore that the Brahmana has to cultivate this vision, and equally so the Vaishnava. The Vaishnava has to cultivate this vision of the bigger picture, seeing Krishna and not getting carried away by the immediate cause, whatever that may be. This guy, this government, that government, this, that, blame somebody. Who can be blamed? Everybody except me, obviously. That's simple. It's not complicated. It wasn't my fault. Not at all. And even if it was my fault, even if it was my fault, it wasn't really my fault. It wasn't. Like the fact that I broke this little light, I didn't really break the light. It just broke on its own. But it just happened to be so when I touched it. Because it was old and rotten anyway, and when I put my finger on it, it touched, and then it looked like I broke it, but I didn't. It broke on its own. Actually, therefore, I'm not guilty. Yeah? But even if I would be guilty, then you should consider that my mother used to kick me around like a football, and you should remember, that in our family, I had such a bad background that, I can't help it. I have to do things like breaking lights and other things because I'm a victim. Therefore, I'm not guilty. It's not me, it's actually my mother who played football. That's what it is. So somehow or other, we'll find a way to get out and to not be blamed. But okay, I think he's the cause of the lamp that it broke because he looked at it. I saw him looking at it and he jinxed it. He jinxed it just by looking at it. I think you're responsible. You broke it, not me. It's because you jinxed it. Still, it must be broken. I try. Anyhow, if the lamp breaks, don't say that I jinxed it. Anyway, so this point that we are looking for someone to blame. But when we see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate cause, we can't blame Him. Some people blame God. Like there's a big war and so many people die, and then look up at the sky, there is no God. How can there be a God? How could a God allow all this suffering? No, there cannot be a God because it is theologically not possible that there is a God full of love and compassion that would have allowed, innocent children. I mean, innocent children, really. I mean, adults, you can understand, they have, they had it coming. They had it coming. All right, fair enough. But a kid, an innocent kid. I mean, this is too much. There is no God. No God. How could this have happened? But then we forget one thing. Oh yes. We forget that the Supreme Lord is only benevolent, or that He is all good. He's all good. So when we see that the ultimate cause of everything is the Supreme Lord, we can't blame Him because He's all good. So it's only we cannot see how it's good. Prabhupada told the story about the king, some Vedic king, and the Vedic king one day was playing with an arrow, and it had a very sharp head. And as he was playing with the arrow, the king cut a little piece of his finger, the royal finger. Now that was a national disaster. The royal finger, a little piece of the royal finger came off. So then a minister, a close minister to the king, when he heard about it, he just tried to pacify the king and said, well, ultimately we have to accept whatever happens as good. And the king just really goes, oh, it's good, huh? It's good that a piece of my finger got cut off. It's good, isn't it? It's good, is it? It's good. Well, it's also good when you go to jail. The next moment, the royal guard and dragged off the minister and threw him in jail. Some days later, the king was still enjoying that his minister was in jail. And the king, as usual, would go for some hunting in the forest. And as he went into that forest, there was a gang of dacoits, and he got attacked by them. And they captured him, and they decided to make a human sacrifice to Mahabhairava, a ghastly form of Lord Shiva. So they were making all the arrangements to turn it into the sacrificial animal, and they were going to dress him up like the sacrificial animal. And just as they were doing so, and they're very happy we're going to offer a king, Mahabhairava will be very pleased. First class offering. Then they saw there was a little piece of the finger missing. Ooh. And whenever you make an offering, you can't just offer something that's defective, right? It's like, gosh. So they let him go. So that king on the way back, was just thinking about his minister, and is thinking, oh, it is indeed, he was right. It is all good. It is true, actually, what he said. Everything is ultimately good. If they wouldn't have cut that piece of my finger, I would be dead. It was good. So he let the minister out of the jail, told the whole story to the minister. Then he says to the minister, yes, okay, I understand that it was good that my finger got cut, and that was good. But because my life got saved because of it. But one thing I cannot understand, how was it good that you were put in jail? And the minister said, no, that was very good. Otherwise, I would have been with you on that hunting thing, and then they would have offered me instead of you. So that was very good that I was in jail. Anyway, the story makes the point that we cannot see from our little perspective, right, how destiny unfolds. And what looks good and bad to us may turn out to be good in the end. So in this way a devotee accepts. Yes, the Supreme Lord, He makes these arrangements. Of course, that doesn't mean that we cannot make some arrangements to protect ourselves from what looks bad. But when we've done that, when we've reasonably tried to make everything favorable, as favorable as we can, then we leave it up to the Lord. Because He knows on a deeper level, He knows better. And even if everything seems to go wrong, we accept it and never become bitter or never become angry at fate. There is no room for bitterness, no room for anger. And this is where Ashvatthama disqualified himself as a Brahmana, that he did not have the quality of a Brahmana. And therefore, it was correct that Arjuna degraded his status by cutting this jewel off his hand we discussed yesterday. And in that way, we can appreciate these points from the Bhagavatam. When we read the Bhagavatam, we can read it in different ways, and we can read it here like looking at the story and go, look at this Ashvatthama. Now look at this Ashvatthama. Oh, what a character. Ho, 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 ho. But that would not be sufficient. Rather, when we look at Ashvatthama, we use Ashvatthama's actions, we use his activity as a role model to measure our own. So we are measuring ourselves by Ashvatthama. And how much are we ready to look at the ultimate cause? And how much are we free from becoming affected by the immediate cause? These questions may be asked. How much are we beyond anger? How much are we able to actually have that transcendental vision? That is the aim of this whole description about the son of Drona punished. Thank you. Any questions? Any comments?
Thank you, Maharaj. You mentioned about the fire of us in this world. We have to walk through the fire. I was wondering if we have to necessarily go through it as in experience it, or if we can overcome that desire simply through hearing, for example, in Krishna book, the pastimes, and getting attracted to Krishna through hearing the pastimes, or if we have to actually go through the whole experience of family life and all that.
Technically, it would be possible just by hearing to attain perfection. But in this age of Kali, that is practically impossible. The hearing must be accompanied by chanting Hare Krishna. It says all devotional activity, Jiva Goswami says, must be preceded and followed by the chanting of Hare Krishna. But even then, how long can we chant Hare Krishna? Not so long. How much can we hear about Krishna? Not so much. And then what do we do? So for most of us, it's not just about hearing. It is about doing something for Krishna. Because, it's like cutting the grass. This morning they were cutting the grass under the banana trees. My nose noticed it, and my ears also. And what to say? That we can, something like that we can do. We cannot chant all the time. We cannot hear all the time. But we can cut some grass, or we can make some music. We can eat. We can cook. We can do many things. So we have to also just do practical things for Krishna according to our conditioning, what comes natural to us, and engage these things in the service of Krishna. There is in palmistry, and it says the fingers have 3 parts, right? 3 parts. It is said the lowest part of the fingers is the gross sensual platform. The middle part of the fingers is the mental platform. And the top part of the fingers is the intellectual platform. Now wherever it is reddish in your hand, that is where the energy is, in terms of the fingers now. Right? So if it's at the tips, then more on the intellectual side. If in the middle, then it's the mental, then you're on the mental platform. If it's at the bottom, you are on the gross, sensual, animalistic platform. And if your whole hand is red, then there are a few possibilities. One is you have been sitting on your hands, or the other one is you are completely agitated, and therefore your whole hand is reddish. Okay, that was the palmistry lesson for today. So the point is that this, if there's energy on the gross sensual platform, lust. Right. Indriyano mano buddhi, it is in the senses, it is in the mind, it is in the intelligence, that lust. So, if it is there on the sensual platform, then we better work hard with the senses and make a sacrifice in devotional service. And then, after we've done that, then we become more open to hear, and the mind became more absorbed things about Krishna, then we may become more peaceful and we actually may be able to chant. See, usually in the morning, it's time to chant. And actually the first reaction, the first thing we have is a panic attack. And a panic attack, oh my God, I have to chant 16 rounds. Help. 16, no really. And then it's like, okay. Eight done, you know, or 8 down. What a relief, you know. I'm midway. Now I can eat something. But as time moves along, there's still the anxiety. Did you finish your round? No, how many left? Don't talk about it. Anxiety. You know, how many left? No, serious. 8. Ooh. So, generally speaking, chanting, we do it out of anxiety. Generally speaking, hearing, it helps us to overcome insomnia. What is our capacity of this? So it's more than, it's hearing and chanting as the foundation, and then a lot of practical service, because actually a lot of our energy is in the senses. And then one day we can make the choice. One day we can just say, forget it, lust. Just forget it. I don't want you. When will that day come? And lust says, are you sure? And just, not a little bit. Are you really, really sure? Are you sure? And there we go again. So then, okay, more sacrifice and work on and hear and chant. Oh, okay, here's the last.
Thank you, Maharaj. Could I have 2 quick questions?
So you get 2 quick answers.
The first one is regarding, you mentioned the middle planetary systems, that it's full of passion, that's the predominant guna.
Yeah.
Is that in all yugas, like in Satya, Treta,
Yeah,
and so forth? Like in all?
Yes. Predominantly, this planet is in the mode of passion. Of course, in Satya Yuga, it is very diminished, but the tendency towards sense enjoyment is on this planet.
That's one. And the second regarding lust and sex, Is that only gross or subtle?
Only gross or subtle.
In terms of configuration and distinction?
It is in all its varieties and features. And in any means that lust can find, it will enter into our consciousness. Yes. So on the subtle platform, yes, profit, distinction, adoration, me. Yeah, starring me. That's also there. Another question.
Asvatama, he got angry, so
Asvatama got angry.
yeah, so he lost his intelligence with the anger, right? That's why.
Yeah. Which was not what, obviously as a Brahmana that should not have happened. And should also not happen to a devotee.
Does that mean
when Indra became angry, then, he also lost his intelligence. And as a result, he wanted to kill the residents of Vrindavan. So
that anger is ultimately controlled by your internal connection to Krishna through your devotional service, right?
yeah, then we can see it's all part of a greater plan, and then we can still be angry, but not uncontrolled anger. Like, if Asvatama would kill 5 sleeping kids in this community, we would be angry. We would be extremely angry with the guy. And, but we would not stop to be his well-wisher. Something would have to be done, that's for sure. We can discuss what it is. But we would remain his well-wisher. He would need to be punished for his rectification. But we would punish him as a well-wisher, not as a conqueror. We would not put our boot on his throat and say, now listen you creep, right? So, you killed 5 sleeping kids, eh? Well, you see this boot now, right? How does that feel? And I got some more for you. That would be the mood of the conqueror. So in the Bhagavatam, there's in relation to Daksha and Shiva and the anger, when Shiva gets angry with Daksha, it is discussed anger in the mood of the conqueror and anger in the mood of a well-wisher. So there's room for anger in the mood of a well-wisher.
I read somewhere that anger was like, in the devotees, like you show your hood but you don't strike.
Anger, you show your hood but you don't strike. Yeah, well, that was the story that Cobra was advised by Narada Muni. The Cobra became a devotee because of Narada, then he wasn't biting anymore, and all the kids started to throw stones, and therefore the Cobra was in trouble, and then complained to Narada. Narada said, you can't bite, but you can show your hood. Yeah? So that was a rule of thumb. Yeah? But a rule of thumb is not very refined as a principle. So there is time for anger. When Kali was smashing the legs of the bull Dharma, Maharaj Pariksit was angry. He wasn't just there doing his duty with the sword. He was angry, and it was appropriate anger. So when maybe Asvatama should not have become angry, but we are angry with Asvatama for killing the 5 kids. Absolutely. We're angry with him for that. And he deserves that anger. But it's not an uncontrolled anger, and it's the anger of the well-wisher. So, okay, what are we going to do to deal with this case? But this rascal, one of Prabhupada's favorite words was rascal. So, he's a rascal. Yeah, you can be angry with him.
That anger is a powerful force, and sometimes it's hard to control.
Prabhupada would get angry, and when Prabhupada was really angry, his upper lip would quiver. So then he would be extremely angry. But then moments later, it was gone. It wouldn't be like anger. I don't know if you ever had these domestic situations where it got to a point of anger and it was really bad, and then it's there, and then it's quiet, after the big fight, and then the person who made you angry says something, He said, don't stop me again! Don't stop me again! Yeah. In domestic situations, that happens sometimes. So that means the anger is still sort of smoldering, It's like a smoldering fire under the surface. But it's a transcendental well-wisher, one moment angry, boom, next moment gone. That's what proper display. But when a Swedish boy met Prabhupada in Madras and said, oh, when everyone will become a spiritual personality, then there will be peace in the world and no more anger. Then Prabhupada's response was, what's wrong with anger? Anger in the service of Krishna. Bhakta dvesa kruda jani. It says, so those who are envious of the devotees, one can get angry on them, says Narottam this time. So much for all that. Now I'm really quitting. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.